pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could you join me for a moment of silence for men and women in uniform? Thank you, and we thank them for their service. Call this meeting to order at 2 minutes after 6. Any adjustments, Tracy? Incidentally, John, our town manager, is at an important meeting in Rumford and won't be here this evening. And our assistant town manager will be handling the duties.
Yeah, I have a couple of adjustments. Under number 4 in the packets, I've given you some information, and I think there's going to be members of the public that want to speak on the non-agenda item. So that was under number 4. Number 6, we're adding the Oshkosh Aircraft Rescue Fire Truck that is being gifted to us as a consent item. I've also added the homecoming parade permit. And under number 10, we're adding the fire department updates and Dale Cumby Airport Commission resignation letter.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, very good, very good. I need a motion to accept September 14th executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the September 14th, 2018 executive session with any corrections or additions.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor? September 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the September 24th, 2018 regular meeting minutes with any corrections or additions.
Second.
Questions, comments, typos? All in favor? No opposed. Public to speak on non-agenda items. Mr. Borgott.
Thank you. Two items. I was down the town park, if I remember correctly, right before a year or two before the voters approved the $900,000 improvement project. They had approved $50,000 for playground equipment, and before they put a couple pieces in before they went too far with the rest of the project. And I was just wondering, it doesn't look like $50,000 worth of playground equipment to me, but I don't know a thing about playground equipment. So it could be, but if it isn't, I just was curious what the status of the rest of that $50,000 was, and if there's plans to add more piece, or where the money is.
I'll find out for you. We'll
Okay,
get back at it next
that.
meeting.
Thank you. And the second thing is, like 3 meetings ago, might have been 4, you voted to accept the grant for the environmental assessment for the airport project. And you mentioned that the selectmen had ratified that. And at that time, I raised my hand and asked, when did they do that? But no one really answered it. I'd just like to follow up on that, because I had a little more time to think about it. That's a really important document. I can't recall the selectmen discussing it to the point that they'd have ratified it, and I've never seen a final copy. The only copy I saw was the one the town office had back around Christmas time, and that was a draft. And I was wondering if any of you folks have had gotten a copy of the final one to read and see if there were any changes from the draft to the new one or whatnot.
I don't recall it being in our packets, but,
I mean, it's 325 pages thick or so.
right.
And
I,
because it's kind of unfinished business to me, and back around that time in January, I asked Donnie, and he hadn't had a chance to read it, because it came out between Christmas and between Thanksgiving and New Year's, so during the Christmas holiday when everyone's busy and a lot of people would have a hard time reading that then. And I asked Jim Carrigan, he hadn't read it. I had asked Cindy, she had read it, and she had made some comments to it under the response section. But, because I was kind of have some unfinished business with it, because I.
Okay, may I respond now?
Respond, what's that?
You all set? Are you
No,
all?
I'm just wondering
Yep.
if there's a final copy and if it's been ratified.
All right, I'm going to give you my response, okay?
Okay,
All right. Number one, I will get you the date. Number two, it seems to me, Mark, that you're grasping at straws now that the grant has been awarded to Rangeley, but I will get you the date. I need you to understand, though, that this process is moving forward. The FAA the FAA awarded the grant based upon the completion of the application, which included the environmental assessment. But I'll get you that date.
and it's not that, you know, I don't think this is gonna happen, because I know it is. You know, it's just the process, because when I was handed.
Would you agree that the process with the FAA has been completed?
On the airport extension?
Correct.
Yes,
And it would also include the environmental assessment?
right.
Okay.
But the comments, I don't feel were answered properly, and I was trying to get to the bottom of that and never got to it. And so I'm, seeing as you folks brought it up, I thought I'd chime in and find out, because I have.
I'm not quite sure how we brought it up. You asked the question.
What, you brought it up when you voted to accept the grant for it.
Oh,
And that just
yeah.
rekindled my thoughts there about, you know,
Right, I'll get you the date, but recognize the grant has been accepted and
I
submitted.
recognize that.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
I'm hoping
Any-
it's correct. It's been corrected.
Okay, anything else?
No?
Yes, sir. Could you state your name, please?
My name is Chris Lynch, I'm with the Matrix Design Group. I'm not sure if you remember, but I was here in the spring. My company would like to offer to build a fiber-to-the-home network in the town at our expense. We have discussed this with the Greater Franklin Development Council and also with Heather Johnson at the Connect Maine office. We would like to have a time to give you some of the details so you can know what we're talking about. When we talked in the spring, I thought that was going to be set up, but if possible, I'd like to get on the October 22nd Board of Selectmen meeting, maybe 15-20 minutes of your time. We figure the investment on our end would be worth about $3.5 million. So we'd like to make sure everybody's aware of it.
Thank you. Any questions for this gentleman?
Yeah, the first time you were here, you mentioned that it was gonna be our responsibility for part of this, right?
Yes.
Okay, has that changed?
No, the responsibility for the town would be to provide the right-of-way on the poles.
Okay.
That involves what's called make-ready work with utility companies. It's not inexpensive. So of the project, you'd be looking at probably about $4.7 to $4.8 million. We'd be responsible for about 3.5 of that, and the town would be responsible for the rest. Now, Connect Maine has a broadband plan where they're looking to hopefully get 25% funding of any private build toward the town or the municipality, which would actually pretty much cover the entire cost of it. That is not in place yet, but the time to make sure that you're aware of this is now. The longer that the town goes without real, true, high-speed broadband, the fewer people, families move in, the more it affects business and so on and so forth. But there would be a cost to the town.
So we're either gonna have to pay somewhere around $1 million or not.
Or, one of the things that we've discussed is there's a possibility of a municipal lease where the responsibility for paying that $1 million would be placed upon the subscribers. So the town would be, providing its full faith and I forget the other word.
So you just roll it into the cost per month for the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd like to review with the Board of Selectmen. What it would look like for the subscriber, what it would look like for the town, what we would be offering, and, the other aspects of the offer. So if possible, the 22nd would be great.
Okay, any other questions? All right, could you Cindy, do you have something?
No, not at all.
Could you please see the town manager, provide all the information that we need so we can get it, that was a few days before, and we have a better understanding of what we're gonna be looking at when you
Okay, fair enough.
come up that date. It'll probably take him about a week or more to put that together, so just to help you with the time frame.
I can send an email to him tomorrow.
Super, thank you. Anything else on the public? Yes,
Hi,
how are you?
good. Mary Archer Bry. and I was asked to be here by Mr. Savage regarding, I believe, the bench that we had installed in the park today, the memorial bench that was recommended by the Parks and Rec Committee and was approved by the town selectmen in April, I believe. So I have a couple photos of what we had installed today, if you'd like to see. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why I'm here. That's a close-up, and that would be more extensive, and it's next to the bathhouse, which is exactly the spot that the children gave to the Parks and Rec Committee on Google Earth, that they would like it to have been put in, and it just so happened there was space.
Thank you. Oh,
Now that looks lovely. Also wonderful.
nicely done.
Thank you. Did you get to see it? Did you do that?
I did, thank you.
Anything you want to add?
No, I wanted to have it presented, the fact that it got put in, that, I mean,
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot of good communication between you guys and the park commission, and just went in seamlessly, so.
I actually comment on that. I can't let that go for the fact that I've been here for 8 months, essentially, and as of yesterday was the first day that I actually, in a professional stance, heard of this bench. So there's been no communication to myself in regards, no hard feelings anywhere. I didn't know what was coming here, so I was called yesterday and I tried to call Mary only to figure out what to do with the bench, because I didn't want to assume responsibility, nor was I in town to assume it. And I know M&H was uncomfortable in the same regard of accepting the bench, not knowing where it went 100% at the time. That was the only issue we had. So communication wasn't the greatest, but again, maybe the transition in employment.
I didn't know he was in the position, I didn't
Yeah.
know that Joe had
Well,
left.
you know,
That's fine.
Yeah, no, and yeah, because it was, yeah, definitely discussed, approved at meetings, and I think probably with, Tim moving on, and there's just a breakdown, there's just some
So that's-
communication. It's unfortunate, you got caught, it's like, you needed to allocate
And
time.
I probably came off the wrong way. That wasn't my intention by any means. I had no idea what was going on. And to my knowledge, there was not a confirmed spot for that bench yet. Was what my research since then has showed.
Yeah,
But with that said, I'm glad it's in place and it does look nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Donnie?
Yeah, this was approved on the March 5th meeting, and it says, Selectmen motion to approve memorial bench in the park with location and design to be determined.
And at that meeting, it was when you were planning the park, the blueprints were still on the wall. Kenny Haley was here, and Tim. And in discussing this, and bringing it up and discussing it, he said, work with Kenny, the design aspect, they'll figure out certain spots. And then I said, can we ask for the kids to have first refusal? There were supposed to be 5 spots in the park for the bench, or 5 different areas for a bench to go. I guess that changed as plans go on, because plans do change. But anyways, I contacted Kenny and I said, the bench is coming. You had a spot for it for the last several months, or an idea of where you wanted to go. We met last night, Kyle, his dad, and that was the spot. And they made it happen. And I'm sorry that the communication was lost. I didn't know you had the job. I didn't know I was supposed to communicate. So I guess, we're both at fault, but I have no hard feelings.
My point is, I think, the board should have been made aware where it was gonna go and okayed it, kinda. But,
Well-
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, the process was a little,
I think the board kind of left it up to the park and the kids, is how I felt at the end, but
okay.
next time,
I mean, it didn't specify who determined it,
correct.
so, anyway.
It was determined.
Yeah, we determined that
You have anything,
to
Dave?
be at another date, but whatever.
What's that, Donnie?
Yep.
Sydney, you all set?
I'm good.
Okay, Shelley, we're at public to speak, talking about number 4. Did she get, yeah, boy, back it up this way. This one right there. The rest of it you'll have to get caught up with. That's the coup. First of all, Mary,
Oh, I'm sorry.
first of all, It's a lovely bench. Could you just show the pictures to
Oh,
Shelley,
I'm sorry,
please?
yes.
And the intent
I
to
haven't
do
even
this for
been
Eli Morrow
Thank you.
is fabulous. And I think everybody recognizes that.
I don't know, Bobby is inviting people to a vigil on Friday. They're having a vigil
Could you-
there. And I
Since
don't know-
communication is terrible throughout
It's-
this
well,
process,
It's on, if whoever's on Friends of Eli's page on Facebook, it's kind of being kept to that. But I know
Okay.
she'd like to have important, people from the community definitely come, so,
well, if you could ask Bobby, because nobody wants to
understand.
infringe on personal issues like that, but if they'd like any of us to be there, I can't imagine anybody sitting up here wouldn't want to be part of that if they can do it.
And she went down with her daughter today, and I got word that she did approve very much so, that's good.
Nicely job,
Right.
nicely done. Thank you. Any other questions on that? You all set? Very good. Anybody else in public? Yes, dear. I want to make sure you at least knew we were going to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in public to speak? Okay. Let me just make sure, Tracy, we're gonna get 2 dates. Mr. Borg, I want to make sure that that is on our list to do for John and I. Okay, thank you. Mark, I've been thinking about what I said, and I owe you an apology. I shouldn't be calling sour grapes or making any assumptions here. You have a right to ask. That won't happen again for me. Okay?
Thank you,
Yep.
appreciate it. Would you give me one more minute, just to clear up my end of it?
No. I'm gonna follow the same path that was done before. I think it's appropriate, but I wanted you to know how I felt about that. Boards and committees, anybody in boards and committees that need to give us an update? Okay, good. Consent items, disbursement warrants, AP warrants, 1940, et cetera, number 6.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the AP warrants FY 19-14, $161,116.36.
Need a second.
Second?
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Correspondence, we got any correspondence?
No,
We have more consent
We
stuff.
We added the parade permit and the fire truck.
You want to do, oh, excuse me, yeah, keep chiming in on that. Okay,
I'll make a motion, we approve the parade permit application for the Rangeley Lakes Regional School Student Council for a homecoming parade, be held on 10/14/18 at 4 p.m. And rain date is 10/19/18.
second.
moved and seconded, any discussion? Is this another parade I never get to see? I've never heard of this one.
The student council, I'll explain a little bit. The student council, about 3 years ago, kind of tried to breathe some life back into and establish a homecoming week, maybe even a little bit longer. And the student council president was just elected they just had elections a couple of weeks ago, so, which is why the lag time is a little behind with this. They just had a student council meeting to have it approved and presented to the powers that be at the school. So it's an event that's happened over the last 3 years, I think.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All in favor? So, fire truck. It says here we're gonna talk about a truck that is coming from Brunswick, is that correct?
It was offered up as a donation to the town. It's an aircraft rescue truck. It holds 1,000 gallons of water, 130 gallons of AFFF foam, and 500 pounds of dry chemical. Basically, it would be stationed at the airport for airport response emergencies.
Is there room for it inside?
There is, do you know the main building?
No.
The door on the far right, it's a smaller bay, will actually fit in there. There is currently, is it urea?
Yeah, we have a pallet of urea that sits there, but it's literally a pallet of
Okay.
material.
Make sure it's not sitting outside.
No.
Nope. Any other questions, or you'd like me to go in depth?
Carry on. You know what my questions are, so go ahead.
So basically, the upkeep for throughout the year, we're gonna be looking at $250 for pump testing yearly, cost of diesel. Of course, if we have an emergency, we're gonna be responsible for replacing the foam if we use it. We're looking at, it is somewhat of a, it's not a typical fire truck, it's a little bit more dangerous, so we're gonna be restricting the training on it to just a certain amount of members, because of the top heaviness of it. It also will give the town an additional 1,000 gallons if we do have a structure fire. It's portable water that we can actually move somewhere else and use it as a tanker. It does have the ability, excuse me, it does have the ability to pump and roll, which none of our trucks currently have. And it also has the ability to use foam application and dry chem, which we don't really have in any of our trucks.
Can you address the assurance issue?
The insurance, we did look into it, was an additional $500 a year, was that
This,
the?
MMA has, their property casual is pretty standard for all vehicles, it's an additional $500 in premium. But I haven't heard back on whether or not we'll get a discount on the airport insurance because of the added safety factor that we currently don't have. With it being there and with the light flight coming in, it will definitely serve a purpose if needed, so. I haven't-
Isn't there also a potential cost savings that may be incurred by people in town if we meet some sort of...
That's when we go for the ISO rating, which is our overall insurance rating for your homeowner's insurance. I believe we're due for, and I don't quote me on this, I believe we're due in about a year, 2 years for our ISO ratings. Currently, we're a 5.9. If anything, we would probably stay 9 on the rural areas, but go to a 4 in town. And that's just my estimate, but that would be coming up because that's also an additional apparatus, plus they look at the gallonage that it holds. So.
Thank you. Larry, what's the Airport Advisory Council think?
Well, it came to us today, and we voted in favor of it based on the presentation, if it did not require an additional building at the airport, and if it fit in the existing building as it is in the SRE building without affecting anything else in the building, and that it does not have a huge added overhead to repair and maintenance, and if it did, to come back to this board, and it would be an item that would be controlled by the airport committee, not the fire department, and we would have the authority to say, no, don't fix it.
Yeah, we would be looking at operating it.
Instead of it being in the hands of the fire department as to them repairing it, any major maintenance would have to come back to the airport committee for us to make that decision. That was how the motion read.
I have a question.
Hang on, yeah, I'll get
Yeah.
right to you. So what I understood you to say is that the Airport Advisory Commission is telling us
We're in favor of it if
you're in favor of it if you have control over it.
we stay in control of it, it fits in the existing building, we don't have to build another building for it ever.
Mhm.
And if it has any major maintenance issues, it comes back to us and not into the normal fire budget. So we can make the decision whether you scrap it or keep it.
Okay,
That was how the motion was presented.
okay. And that was voted upon and
Am I right? Is that correct?
It is correct, yeah.
So
it was voted on?
voted unanimously under those restraints.
Okay. Anything else, Larry?
That's my vote.
Rebecca?
Let me just clarify that. So it's owned by the airport, the fire department runs it. So if something major comes up, and I think they were talking about, like, it's gonna cost $10,000 to fix something, then it would come to the airport commission to discuss and vote on and send to the Board of Selectmen for a vote on whether the money would go in to fix it or junk it, and so that's.
Okay. Go ahead, Donnie, and then I'm gonna...
My question is the foam. Is it in canisters?
No, it is a 130-gallon foam tank. So if we did run into an emergency, we'd be looking at purchasing, the 5-gallon canisters to fill up that reservoir.
Is there a shelf life on this stuff?
There is a shelf life, yes. So we're getting it new, so we're looking at about 5 years.
Okay. So you don't have to replace it for 5 years? Okay. That was my question.
Anything else? Dave?
Nope.
Cindy?
Go ahead.
You?
So, I just got a little confused because they're saying it's gonna be for the airport use, but then you had mentioned before that it was basically a can pump, able to roll. So, if something were to happen and there was a situation, does that mean that that equipment's not used without getting permission from the
No,
airport?
we would set up like a mutual aid agreement, much like what you have at other airports, like Bangor International Airport. The apparatus is there at the airport, but if Bangor Fire does have a need for the foam or the water, then under a mutual aid agreement, it does come out.
We discussed that also,
Yeah.
as we all know that this town is, if somebody blows the whistle, it's all fair game in this community, whether it's the bucket loader at the airport, this fire thing at the airport, my boats, your boats, Steve's boats, my airplanes, whatever we have to do to make this community safer in the event of an emergency. I don't believe anybody's ever said no.
Clarify?
No, I just have another question.
Sure.
So would it be better for the town to have it underneath the airport, underneath the fire department, because that's a shared service throughout, rather than having it as a town of Rangeley airport only
Well, we
cost,
still
if something were to
have
happen? I'm
access
just-
to it, because we don't need only basically employees trained on it, but I believe that the Brunswick, what's the airport there? The Brunswick Municipal Airport or Brunswick? Executive Airport offered it up to the airport and the fire department, so I don't know how you wanna word it.
I'm just looking at one thing is the town of Rangeley and the other one is a shared service with all. That's just, I don't know what the best way to do for the bookkeeper.
It's gonna be manned by, I'm sorry, it's gonna be manned by your regular fire department.
Right, we're gonna provide the training
The
and.
airport guys aren't.
I think
That's the only thing
just
we
budget-wise
I'm
is
looking
what,
budget-wise, sorry.
Oh, budget.
where, yeah.
Yeah, like if they need to buy the new phone, is what she's saying, that's 47% everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I just add
Exactly.
some, my own personal clarity? It is not a first response vehicle for anything other than an air crash at the airport.
Correct.
Secondly, it's only used in case you have identified, we can put this to work and we have time to drive up there, go through the gate, let the gate go up, get in the building, open the doors, drive out to a scene, who knows how many miles away. Somebody's gonna make that determination. You can't make it on an on-call basis.
No, the caveat to that is if we needed that water somewhere else, it would be an extreme situation where we're calling other towns and communities in also.
And you also need to have that service person trained to be able to take this rig out of there.
Yes, we're only
Otherwise,
looking-
it sits at the airport.
We're only looking at training 5 firefighters to train this because it is gonna take a little bit of driver training, because it is a unique vehicle.
Okay. I just want to be clear that this is one that's sitting up there for a reason.
It's sitting up there for a reason for the airport.
Yeah. Cindy?
Are you qualified to train our staff, or do you have to bring in someone from the
I
outside?
can actually train since I am a state instructor. I went up and did some driver training actually about a week and a half ago. Got the particulars and the specifications on the vehicle. And we basically drove around the airport for a while, just looking at it's got a much higher center of gravity. So we'll be teaching to that higher center of gravity.
You also had a choice between this one and another one.
We
correct?
did. We looked. They offered up 2 to the community. One was a newer T1000. We picked the P19 because it had actually been refurbished in 2004. They went through it. They overhauled the motor. They went over every piece of that equipment and basically remodeled it. Fixed lights, fixed buttons, painted it, dealt with any rust that was there. They overhauled it's got a hail pump in it. They overhauled the hail water pump in it. So it really got to work like a once over. It's basically a new truck considering for 2004.
Cool.
You had another comment, Larry?
It seems like any fluids and or things that, to answer Shelley's question, that were used off airport would be fire department budget.
Right, if we use the phone.
So other than the 5-year certification, to answer Shelley's question, to keep it in the airport's fleet, but yet operate it municipally, the operations municipally could be a back bill to the fire department. No different
I
than
understand.
next year going to the airport.
It is going to be municipally owned no matter
Correct.
under
Either
whose
way,
department.
yeah.
It's,
When you're talking about the airport budget versus the fire budget, a 47% match, then your 47%, if he's gotta buy $2,000 worth of phone to replace it because he used it, that would be a fire department expense.
understand.
Right.
Right. Rebecca, did you have anything else?
No, as I told the airport commission that I'm definitely in favor for this. especially if, we have a crash on site.
And it's
So
free.
and we don't have anything, like, if we had a crash tonight, and it was there, he could literally just immediately drive out, pull it out, and there he is.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention
Because
about
it's
it.
only, one man.
Yeah, if we had a fire now, we'd basically be lobbing copious amounts of water into it because we don't have proximity suits. With this truck, it actually pumps and rolls. One driver can operate both turrets on it, so we could actually get up to a crash or an emergency and actually try to do some good, get the fire suppressed or prevent the fire from breaking out.
Okay.
Never need it.
Anything else on the board?
So do we need a motion to
I
accept?
need a
the-
motion.
There's the thing. Is this the P19?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the Oshkosh P19 gifted to the
Town of Rangeley.
town of Rangeley by the Brunswick Executive Airport.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? It is a vote. Thank you for your work in regards to this, appreciate it.
And sorry for the information getting into your packets late, that was.
Well, you've had it for a while, I was gonna talk to you about that later, but she's got a tough job, you know. Anything else on the number 6 before we, oh, I've lost my agenda.
No?
No? There it is. Okay, correspondence. Anybody have any correspondence? Old business, downtown revitalization plan update.
All I
Okay,
have is what Daryl Sterling had submitted under the department head updates under number 10. I don't have anything specific.
okay, this is something you wanted on there every time, is that correct? You still want it
We want to
there?
make sure that we're updating it, because people say that sometimes they're concerned that it just gets overseen, and making sure that we're following up with what we approve.
All right.
Steve, there is a little minor update. They are supposed to, Wright Pierce is gonna be presenting their plan, their recommendation to the town. I think it's actually supposed to come, it is supposed to come tomorrow. And then we're gonna put it on the, then it's gonna be put on the website.
Is there gonna be paper copies available, or
Yes.
can we get copies of that?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Laura.
My understanding is going through Daryl to town manager and
Yep.
to all of us on the
All right.
economic committee.
Wonderful. What was the question, Doug?
Oh, you said tomorrow, right?
It's supposed to be there on the 10th.
Okay.
Okay, marijuana information. First of all, I want to thank Cindy Egan for providing us with more reading material regarding other, go ahead, Cindy, why don't you give us an update on that?
Yeah, there were a number of us that attended the Maine Municipal Annual Conference last Wednesday and Thursday. I signed up for Thursday, and one of the topics was regarding the new Maine marijuana law. They had a panel of 4, I believe. So it was the town manager of the town of Acton, town manager of Hollowell, the assistant city administrator for South Portland, and an attorney from MMA who is kind of specializing in keeping track of all this information and providing it to towns. And so what I put in your packets, so I attended, Tom Willis attended, and as did John. I'm sorry he's not here today. He would have had a lot to offer. So basically, the town of Acton put together this group of 5, and they did extensive research, to the reached out to Colorado. They've legalized medical marijuana for a number of years, and just really did a lot of research on what the impact was on towns, and got feedback on what they would do differently. And so you've got a summary of what the town of Acton presented, and basically, it's very important to listen to your community, to listen to your folks who live there. They said it's the most contentious issue they've ever faced, and at this point, lobbyists are going to continue to push for marijuana to become less and less restricted. So I also put in here a survey. There are a number of towns that have handed out or asked that the public participate in surveys, and this one's from the town of Bridgeton, and this is regarding medical, retail, and commercial. And this is just, all I did was substitute, took out Bridgeton and plugged in Rangeley, and so this was feedback, something for the board to look at. We're going to need public hearings on the proposed marijuana ordinance and respond to the public accordingly with adjustments. And for those who can't attend, this was made available to Bridgeton registered voters and Bridgeton homeowners. And then a very interesting conversation with the town manager of Hollowell. Actually, it'd be great if we could get either of these town managers to come to a public hearing. Basically, they said it is extremely important to draft an ordinance that your townspeople can support. Because going backwards, like for instance, is a town that felt the need to create a odor mitigation ordinance. And so to try to correct what you don't identify up front is expensive and involves legal fees on both sides. So I think it's going to be very important for the board to get as much input from the public as possible so that we do right by, voters and the homeowners of the town of Rangeley, since we are a tourist destination. We have a heavy rental market, and which is open to feedback. One of the pieces that I believe was shared by the town manager of the town of Acton was their piece is odor, and I guess the one fact that he tossed out was that the odors that is emitted, or the emissions from a marijuana growing or cultivation facility, is lighter than air and can float for 2 miles. So it's just information we need to think of, and we've got towns that have already done the work for us. So just,
I have a question for Cindy.
yeah.
You said they wrote an ordinance for odor? Was
Yeah.
it specific to marijuana, or?
It wasn't specific to
So a
marijuana.
pig farm could,
It really, any agricultural odors, so if there were any odors that, no, they
Okay.
did not just target.
wasn't specific to marijuana?
That's
Okay.
right, it's what triggered it, but they included other issues.
Okay.
So I don't know if you had any feedback on the survey at all, or comments, questions?
Anybody have any comments,
I do,
questions?
if I can find the right spot here, wait a minute. There was a thing in here about clubs, yes? One of these questions was about
Yeah, that's.
social clubs, and I think in the ordinance, I think it's not allowed, that we wrote. Pretty short.
Yeah, and so, and that's a very good point. I think another piece in here, regarding restrictions, the town should require that marijuana businesses not be located near schools or churches. I think you included daycare facilities and public parks and playgrounds. So there's some pieces that are already in place, and maybe there are other concerns that voters or homeowners may have.
Anything else?
That's what I have.
Shelley?
I have a question. Would we send the questionnaire to just residents, or would we actually do second home owners as well? Because I believe that we make more up of second homeowners than we actually do residents of owning property.
You're doing tax money. I don't know about physically, but, yeah.
Yeah.
They pay 62% of our taxes, so.
Yeah, be respectful to get their input.
But they won't be able to, unless they're citizens, they won't be able to vote on it.
Right, but it's just a matter of.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm all for that.
Because people are gonna start
I like to hear what
bailing
they
out,
say.
then
Yeah.
Rangeley's not Rangeley anymore.
Absolutely.
Anything in the audience, comments? Yes,
Can you describe?
your
where
name,
you are-
please, ma'am? Do we know?
Can you please describe where you are in the process?
This is Ellen Oppenheim.
Oh, I'm
There's
Ellen
a reason.
Oppenheim. I'm a new resident of Aquasset.
There you
So,
go.
I've been coming here forever, but now a resident, so. So my question is where the town is in the process of this legalization and implementation of your ordinances, sounds like you've written.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
You want me to answer?
Yeah.
The ordinance committee, with a lot of help
Okay.
from other towns and stuff, took parts. And we wrote an ordinance. We sent it, the board here has a copy of it, and they voted to pass it on to the lawyers for their review. And that's where we are right now.
Is there any timetable, like?
No, right now, we've got a moratorium in place, and so it allows time for public feedback and comment. We're gonna need to schedule public hearings on the marijuana ordinance and have it adjusted accordingly. I mean, it's just a draft, it's something to work from. And at this point, it allows growing, cultivating, et cetera. So it's very important that we get public feedback, but I said it's just in draft form. The timeline would be to have something available for the public to vote on next June.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Can I ask as the planning board chair that this information get shared with the planning board, please?
Absolutely.
Point. Anything else from the board? Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Glad you bring it to us. New business, Du Bois and King presentation. Listen, before I let you guys get started, this would be a perfect time for me to tell you guys a couple things about some people I'm extremely proud of. You all allowed a delegation from Rangeley to go to DC in the recent past to accept this grant from Secretary Chow and a number of other, I guess they think they're special dignitaries, but it was a good experience, and I can't tell you how proud I am of Rebecca, Larry, and the Airport Advisory Commission, John Madigan, who participated in this, and Josh, and all of you. It was absolutely fabulous, and very, very happy for your hard work and your diligence and all that you did to put this together. You're all standouts, and so much so that during this presentation that was in the midst of governmental hearings for Supreme Court Justice, we still seem to gain a lot of press. I found out later, we didn't hang around for the press down there, but apparently it was all over DC, Virginia, and whatnot. There were two speakers representing $250 million worth of grants, Rangeley, Maine, and Huntsville, Alabama. That was it. And they represented 38 states in this grant process. And Secretary Chow mentioned Rangeley, Maine 3 times. It was fabulous. I mean, to see DC stand up and go. And incidentally, they said Rangeley, Maine is one of the nicest places to go to. So with that, thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, so we just wanted to come tonight, kind of give an update of the process and the project, where it's at, where we're headed. I think, one of my agenda items was to talk about the DC trip. It was a fabulous experience, quite a neat event. Just some more statistics to that, and I'm going to be somewhat general on them. They were all kind of shared, but for the general public, there was about $220 million, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, or anybody else, but about $220 million left for this round. There's 3 rounds. There was one in 2019, and 2020. They got a total of another $1 billion into airports, so they let 220 million. Of that 220 million is about 50 or 55 million, I believe, that was just for general aviation airports, so airports like Rangeley in the country. And Rangeley received a quarter of that money. So very, very interesting. It was one of 36 grants awarded. There were, how many, 2,000?
There's 2,000 airports that applied.
Yeah, a couple of. But, you know, it came down to us being ready. It came down to us a lot of hard work, a lot of coordination, and so very neat event. So with that, you know, there was going to be a few more people here to maybe speak tonight. Guy couldn't make it tonight. Unfortunately, his father-in-law passed away this morning, so he was on his way. He said actually headed back. DOT was going to make a presence too, but they called late, so they weren't going to be able to make it. They'll be here tomorrow. I've got Josh. Josh has been instrumental in this, as you know, in the process, and Life Flight too. And so I'm sure he'll add to this as well. So yeah, I just wanted to discuss the 100% funding. It's a 100% grant. So you know, before we were thinking it was a 95-5 split. That's not 100% is being paid for by the federal government. I recapped the DC trip. Again, once in a lifetime kind of event. It was pretty cool. And Steve, you did a good job with your speech, by the way. So. Just
She did like my beard, by the way.
As part of this project, it was originally part of this project was force account. What force account basically is using town resources and using that on the project and getting money for that. And from the beginning, way back in the beginning, we said that the town wasn't going to have a financial obligation to these projects. And we've upheld that bargain. The FAA has an agreement with the town on force account. It's worth about just under $600,000 using borrow from Chick Hill for the project. So that's going to pay for basically that's in the agreement that the FAA writes is it's supposed to be used for airport improvements. And so that was really how the 5% was going to get funded for the planning projects, the environmental projects, the design projects, and eventually this one. Fortunately, this last one, 100%, you don't have to pay that. So you're going to have some extra money for future airport improvements. So that's a good thing. And it's $600,000, nothing to shake a stick at. So, and I've been doing this for a couple years, many projects with this. This is by far the largest one we've done. And so it's pretty good. It'll hopefully set the airport into years to come as far as maintenance and equipment and any of that stuff. So that's good to, and it's all based on quantity, so that number will fluctuate a little bit depending on in-place quantities, but I've done it before, it's going to be about that number. So, so the next steps, we've got a pre-construction meeting with Sargent tomorrow. Sargent is the low bidder on the project. I've had some initial meetings with them, some initial indications that they want to start. They want to start now, and they want to work right through the winter time. So we could potentially have the runway reconstructed and open sometime midsummer next year instead of this time next year. So that's a good thing. It's good winter work from them. It's a doable project in the wintertime. They'll have to plow snow, and we were chuckling about frozen, wintry conditions up there. That's probably the worst place to be in the wintertime. But, they're up for it. If we need to have a little break, then that's fine. We'll do that. So we'll have that pre-construction. We'll be talking about schedule. We'll be talking about construction activities, airport closures, all the interactions between the public. We're going to have to relocate that road. We're going to work with, beyond wastewater treatment facility property. So there's going to be a lot of coordination during that meeting. So we'll kick that off and we'll go from there. In addition, tomorrow we're going to have our follow-up CIP meeting. The FAA postponed the airport's this year's CIP meeting because we didn't know if we were going to have a 95-5 grant or a 100% grant. So based on that, they were going to decide what the next projects were in the queue, or where they landed, so to speak. So now that they know that, we're gonna meet with them, we're gonna discuss these projects and move forward. And just like we've always, said we're gonna do, we're gonna continue that. The next project on the list is a parallel taxiway. It's been planned for, it's been permitted. There's a use for it. I don't know if Josh wants to talk to that or not. But that's kind of the next phase of this project. I think Josh put it best was, we've got now a project to extend the runway. It's like scoring a touchdown. We now need to kick the extra point. So the parallel taxiway is an important piece of infrastructure to that. It's for safety, it's for capacity, better instrument procedures, all that stuff. So, and I'm sure Josh can talk to that, especially with his operations. But that's kind of the next plan. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of confused. There have been several meetings in the past years where you said, I think Larry, you made a public statement that, and you affirmed that there's no need for a parallel taxiway. I think Steve, you mentioned it publicly as well. So I'm confused.
I'll clarify mine, Steve. I don't believe I ever said there was no need for it. The need is in the future. And it's all based upon funding.
So, and maybe I can, let me take this just a little bit further.
Okay.
And it might clarify some of this. So, along with this, this project, there's still another 2 years of funding with this 100% omnibus. So our plan is by the end of this month, we would like to submit, we're going to submit a grant application to fund a parallel taxiway for 100%. And so there's that. We're anticipating that because we've got planning done, we've got environmental done, so it's a project that's ready to go. And it was one of the main things that was discussed at our DC trip is that that's the reason it got funding, it was ready to go. So
where does the Board of Selectmen come in?
You got a question?
Where's the what?
Where does the Board of Selectmen and the public input come into all of this?
Well, during the
I'm
planning,
really confused.
during the planning stages, we talked about it. During the permitting stages, we talked about it.
The last time it was discussed though, Shane, it was at the March 5th presentation you gave, and it was brought up again, and you said, if and only, it's not needed because, of the modifications that are being made with the current runway, and it would be down the road at some later point and for a discussion,
I can maybe clarify this just a little bit. Okay. So,
Could you just state?
Take your name.
yeah, Josh Dixon from Lifelight Maine. I'm the Aviation Systems Coordinator for Lifelight. So, when we put the approach in, the instrument approach, you guys remember me talking about that many, many months ago, about how that would go down. We're shooting for what is a very low approach, meaning our visibility and height above touchdown when we are at the end of the approach would have very low visibility and be very low to the runway. That would increase the odds that we can make it in bad weather. You guys remember some of that, I hope. There may be a requirement, and it's currently listed as a requirement for the first column of LPV, which is the type of approach we're looking for, which would be the lowest, to have a parallel taxiway. So if, from Lifelight's standpoint, if the FAA were to come back and say, hey, we're actually going to give you an LPV approach, you meaning the town of Rangeley and the airport, of course, we're going to give you an LPV approach, and it's going to be column 1, and we don't require a parallel taxiway for that, then the need for us isn't so much there as long as there's turnarounds at either end of the runway that we can turn the airplane around, okay? But if they give, my understanding in talking with Tim Lesage from the Maine Department of Transportation Aviation Division is, if they do give that column 1 LPV, where it's the very lowest minimum available, then that would trigger the FAA to move forward and suggest that they do that. The same exact thing is playing out in Belfast right now. So that's our interest in it. We just want a really good approach, and if that approach means putting in the parallel taxiway, then we support that obviously with, you guys have to work that out with the town of Rangeley, but that's our input into the project. If the FAA comes back and says we don't require that parallel taxiway to give you those really low minima in the approaches, then it is of less importance to us as Lifelight.
Hey, Cindy, you all set?
Well, Donnie has his hand up, so.
I know he does. You all set?
Yeah, I just, this has been, you've stated time and again that this parallel taxiway that, it was added to the CIP for whatever reason, because of what ifs.
That reason right there.
And I just, I was under the impression that this was one project at a time. We've just been granted an incredible gift of over $11 million, and let's get a project done and then look to the next one as the town sees fit. I understand you want to make a lot of money, but how about one project at a time?
Yeah, it's not about that, it's about taking advantage of the opportunity that exists right now, and the funding that's there, because that funding doesn't come along very often. And this infrastructure is needed for the exact reason that Josh stated, for instrument approaches. If we maintain the same instrument approaches, but we extend the runway, we're getting halfway there. We're not getting all the way there with this runway extension. So, and again, it's been part of the discussions.
As
Okay.
a very vague option. I mean, it's been brought up, but you've said if, when, it's of record.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Donnie?
Yeah, just clarify, is this a whole separate project from the extension?
It's a follow-on project.
Okay,
Explain some of the
Is that yes
timeframes
or
of when you
no?
think it's gonna take place.
So, in the current CIP that we had agreed upon, the FAA, the 2019 project was to do the design and the construction of the parallel taxiway. 2018 was to construct and extend the runway.
Okay?
so it doesn't have to go out to bid?
It absolutely does.
No,
Yeah.
for the
I mean,
engineering.
yes. Is it a separate project as far as engineering, bidding, and construction? Yes.
So you're gonna put it out for bid for the whole engineering down to the
It will
actual?
go out for bid for the construction. Yep.
That
All right,
you didn't answer this
I'm
question.
we're gonna go right around the room. I'll get everybody's questions in. Rebecca?
Yeah, I'm hearing that people weren't aware of this parallel taxiway. In the beginning, we had huge drawings, many different options of the runway extension, of the parallel taxiway, and even of buildings at the airport. These were all reviewed several times and voted on by the Board of Selectmen. So these were put in front of the selectmen, they were put in front of the public, and they were voted on. As the airport manager and as the finance director, this is an opportunity for 100% funding for this project. And it'd be silly for us to not try to take advantage of, like he says, the opportunities that are in front of us, especially when it is for safety reasons.
I'm a little concerned that we found out today that there's a meeting tomorrow night.
No, the pre-construction meeting's been posted
It has?
for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, I was unaware too, Donnie.
I wasn't aware of it.
Okay, guys.
Anyway, okay.
Now, listen, this has already been contentious enough it is. I know it's been here. If I have to go back, I'll look for it. But we posted this meeting for several weeks now. We knew it was coming right up. What's the date today? The 8th? Ninth?
No.
Tomorrow was the 10th is when it was posted. I just read it again the other day. Shelley, you had a comment?
So I just have a question.
Is it up on the board now?
On
Oh,
the
hang on.
part, okay, so on the part where you said between the 500 and 600,000, that was our 5% towards the project. So you're saying that now that money has to go towards the airport?
So as part of the force account procedures for FAA, they require that force account money be used for airport stuff.
So if they're using materials for the sewer department, which to me, I mean, I know we need a new lagoon, I'm just thinking totally on that aspect of it, saying, so if we need a new lagoon, I'm thinking that money should go towards that next project, not necessarily the airport, because, yeah, that's.
It's going, but it's going through the FAA process. It's-
Right.
It's going through that process, so that's just their requirement to use that.
Okay.
The borrow has been a point of savings for the town of Rangeley from day one. This is the first time it's ever been suggested that the money go to the sewer department. It's been known from the get-go, airport-related project. The caveat, the nice thing about it for the community is, we need this future thing done for the sewer commission. So we'll just, I'm sorry? Somebody said something. No?
She did.
I said, right.
Oh, I'll turn them down. But from the get-go, we've been talking about money going back into the airport as that borrow component.
But then that was supposed to be our 5%, so that's the part that I was hoping that would not be the case, but,
And why? I'm curious.
only because we're gonna have to save up for another $1 million project next for the new lagoon.
And
And they
we
were
would
taking
have
the
to
money
add
from
$600,000 worth of new lagoon costs digging it out. We've already got that, free. And we're putting the money into the airport for future savings, because that's the FAA's requirements.
And in all fairness, the parallel taxiway does, I mean, I saw that it was in a plan, but I believe it was like the 5-year plan eventually, and it was like on the wish list. But allegedly, and I think it was, so we don't need it right now because of where we're extending it, we're not gonna have that lip up, right? Is that, I wanna make sure I'm not really.
I just want to clarify, it is always in the plan, if you go back to the runway length analysis, and if you look in that document, that has always been part of that document, because we need better instrument procedures. You need a parallel taxiway, a full-length parallel taxiway.
So if we don't get 100%, how much is it gonna cost?
Well, nothing, because we've got
To us, I mean.
600,000.
But you still have to
Even if
pay
we
for the
do get
engineers,
100%,
right? Or is the
Yeah.
engineer work already done?
It's still in the, it would still go into the CIP as a project, so you'd
Yep.
still, worst case here is you don't get a grant application in for the omnibus, it's still a 95 and 5. So you still have 5%.
Which
And our
is-
estimated cost is about 500,000, 5 million right now for that project.
For the whole taxi.
Yes.
Which we have with the force account fund, so it's not gonna cost us anything anyway. I just
Wait a
think,
minute. What did you just say?
I just said, we've got, even if we don't get 100% funding, it's not gonna cost us anything anyway, because we have 500,000 to 600,000 in the force account.
Assuming that that's what you apply that money towards.
Exactly.
Okay, so-
Josh?
Yeah, the one thing that I think, like, I hear you guys talking, that there is something that did change in the middle of this. So this project did start out as, it actually started out as a conversation with Shane, and I talked with the FAA a long time ago, but Mary Walsh was gonna fund this, and she wasn't sure where the money was gonna come from in the beginning. We thought maybe it was gonna be part of the 95-5 thing we keep talking about. And then in the middle of this, Trump came out with the omnibus grants for all this infrastructure improvement. So the kind of the floodgates on money for airport improvements have sort of opened up recently. And they're really into, the Trump administration is really into improving airports. This is not the only project going on right now like this, even in the state of Maine. I don't mean the runway extension, obviously that is very unique, but
Right.
I mean things like parallel taxiways and
Right.
things like that. So just, it's a small
I
point,
just- I mean,
but
it just
it
seems like
might
it's-
explain some of what
right.
Cindy was talking about with like some of the, what changed in the
Because
process.
we have to explain it to people that are asking us the same thing.
Well, I mean,
I totally get it.
From the,
Okay,
yeah.
any more to your presentation, and then we'll go to other questions in the
Yeah, I
end.
think I'm all set, thank you.
Yep, go ahead. You all set?
I'm all set, thanks.
All right, I think, did you have your hand up, Laura? Somebody over, Mark, go ahead.
Mark did.
Okay. I kind of tend to agree that this parallel taxiway hasn't been completely vetted. It was kind of added on, the pitch was during the environmental assessment thing, to include it for efficiency's sake, seeing as they were doing all this environmental stuff. They might as well do that even if you didn't need it for quite a while and stuff. And I think that's why people went with the efficiency thing, but I think it was a distant thing that they deal with it after this current project, was that the runway extension was constructed. And, you know, in a airport commission meeting this evening prior to this, you know, Rebecca and Shane gave us kind of the same update, and they stated kind of what Shane just did now, that they were gonna go ahead and fill out this omnibus grant and send it in before October 30th, and that they didn't need approval from the Board of Selectmen. All they needed to do was tell them that that's what they were doing. And that just struck me as a odd way that I haven't known Rangeley's town government to work that way, that any commission or would have that kind of authority to bypass you folks, you know, authorizing something of this magnitude. And so I think, you know, as fast as this runway project has moved along, you'd be well advised to take a deep breath and sit back and review all the things you've had to deal with, you know, since a year ago May, and see how you think things could be done better. You know, I know some of you regret think you could have done a better job with some of the decision making, so I wouldn't be too quick to rush into this. It sounds like there's money available for quite a few years to come, so I'd take your time and try to get it figured out right.
Yeah, well, just during the budgeting process, there was $25,000 earmarked for the airport reserve account. It was indicated for the parallel taxiway, and we removed that delegation because the board was under the impression this is something that is optional, that is in the distant future, and frankly, our purchasing policy states that only the board can approve the town manager to authorize the town manager to sign a grant. And I frankly, one project at a time. I mean, I guess you said that you don't need to go out to bid for engineering because you already have it locked in,
Yeah, we're already selected by the town to do that work, yeah.
and that was in the RFQ that we never saw. Was that a part of the RFQ last summer?
It was.
Yeah. I say one
And
project.
to Mark's point, if I may,
Certainly. I mean, everybody else speaking out of turn, go for it. Oh, at least you asked, excuse me, go for it.
in the meeting this morning,
I have one ahead of you. Go ahead, Rebecca, you had your hand up. I want to try to keep some semblance here.
On the policies, and maybe we should hand out all the policies for the board to read. The grant, a policy clearly states that the town manager can apply for a grant without the Board of Selectmen's approval. He cannot accept the grant without the Board of Selectmen's approval. I just want to make sure that that was clear. It has nothing to do with the purchasing policy, it's the grant policy.
Okay, thank you. Shane?
we've always, I've worked with the town for many years, always followed the policy of what needs to come to the board and not. So to think that I'm trying to, skirt the board's review, we've been very open with the board. So I just wanted to clear that up. I have no intention of trying to set something, get something by the board here. That's,
Right.
it's not how I maintain business.
So let's get some clarity to this. You want us to say, do the application for the grant, and then it's gonna come back to us because you have some deadlines, and then it'll be up to the board to accept the grant.
It's whatever, I did not come, I came today just to give an update of the project and the
Okay.
status, so.
I appreciate that, but you have deadlines, correct?
We do,
All
yeah,
right. And the deadline is
October 30th.
October 30th. The deadline that Mr. Borgard was referring to was a previous few months back, wasn't October 30th. I don't think you meant that, did you, Mark?
Well, just said these grants go through 2020, and then there's gonna be another round of them after that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
it doesn't look like the money's gonna dry up anytime soon. So, that being said, I think you have time to.
All right, a couple of comments.
walk
from.
off.
Thank you. Couple of comments. One is, time frame may be there, but awarding may not be there, given what we have seen so far to this point. There is a plethora of people applying for these grants. Just because we got one isn't an automatic guarantee we get the next one. Whether we wait till October 30th, 2018, or October 30th, 2021, it does not mean you'll get it. Whether there's a plethora of money out there or not is, I think, is not germane to this, my opinion only. Dave, do you have anything to add?
The money's good today, but it doesn't mean that it's not gonna change next year. You know, and I can't walk down Main Street and tell everybody that we gave up an opportunity to go for 100% for a grant because we wanna wait 5 years and have to pay $600,000 out of pocket to do it 6 years from now. And as far as the process to date to get to where we're at, we got 100% financing. You know, so whatever the process was, it worked. And I can't believe we're arguing over this.
Any more comments, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, we went to town vote for $1 million in the park. So now we're gonna spend $5 million, even though it's not our money. I just think the townspeople should have more of a say in how, if we even wanna do this.
I agree. I think the townspeople should say. The issue tonight is,
Yeah,
do we allow them to apply for the grant? And then I think we should hold public hearings as soon as possible. Full agreement with that.
Okay.
Yes, Joe?
I just thought that it was just, when Rebecca said, we don't need to approve it, they can go for the grant, right?
Yeah, the town, the Board of Selectmen, according to our policy, vote to accept the grant. The town manager has the authority to apply for a grant.
All right,
Or
so
give
then if he's
authority
applying
for
for a
somebody-
grant, all you're just is giving us information tonight.
Yeah, that's it.
You don't need a
We don't
vote
need a
from
vote.
us tonight on applying for the grant,
Understand?
right?
Did I say vote?
That's-
If I did, I apologize. I know this is public information.
Yeah.
Hang on, Cindy,
No,
anything new?
No, nothing new. I mean, again, I think, we had a runway extension project that was approved, and that's what we should focus on. We've got that much more, I mean, Keith's got to figure out that much more upkeep and manpower to keep that runway open, and everything down the road. I mean, it's something that has been brought up by other selectmen in the past year as far as the cost to the town for maintenance and upkeep.
Yep.
So, I think just one project at a time.
Thank you. Larry?
The only thing that I always said today, that I've been saying this right along, that is correct. As far as the FAA is concerned, as far as I as an aviator is concerned, we do not need a parallel taxiway under the current minimum visibility. Our current minimum visibility is 1 mile. Is all we can shoot this approach at. If the FAA decides to bring that minimum less than a mile, and if the FAA says we can't do that because you don't have a parallel taxiway, that's where you come into the catch-22. You don't have a catch-22 today. If you bring your minimums less than a mile, they may say you need a parallel taxiway. If you're not prepared to do the parallel taxiway and they bring your minimums down to a half mile, and you haven't made any provisions for that, there's where they're gonna say, then we're not gonna give you the permit. So today we don't need parallel taxiway. And they may say we don't have to, as Lifeline could say, if we put a hammerhead at the end, so we can turn around on both ends and safely wait for arriving traffic. Well, if someone else can have that airspace, they may not force you to have a parallel taxiway. But I don't see anything wrong with applying for a grant because they could say no to a parallel taxiway because you don't have anything better than a mile of visibility. You can always say, wait, we don't have to do one without the other. That's correct. So to answer the question, I was right, you don't need a parallel taxiway today. But if you raise your minimums, you reduce your minimums, you will.
Okay.
May I just ask a timeline question? The deadline for the application is the 30th. What are the deadlines after that? Usually you guys have an idea on when they're going to decide that on those applications. Do you know what that is? They're saying public hearings, so in my mind I'm thinking dates.
I believe the next deadline would be next May 1st for the regular grant application that would get put in. This initial grant application is more of a, it's titled a grant application, it's more of an indication that, yeah, this is what we're doing. They want to get prepared and plan for the next 2 years. Does that make sense?
So they wanna see how many people are gonna apply for all this money that's out there.
Yeah, and they're gonna pre-award some of that, but we'll put it, so we'll put some, we'll do design in the winter here, we'll put it out to bid in the early spring, we'll put a grant application in on May 1st.
Okay.
Yes, Mark?
Back to the town manager, board of selectmen type of thing that was being discussed. You know, the town manager answers to the board of selectmen. You know, they're his boss, you know. And if the town has a policy in place that lets him do something without the board of selectmen's approval, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. And so I just wanted to point that out as
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Shane.
Just one more reminder, the town has spent a lot of time and money planning, permitting, environmental work for these projects. And not just the parallel taxiway, there's development too. So there's been a significant amount of, and that's only good for a scheduled amount of time per DEP. So that's something to keep in mind when we're talking about this.
Would most of that have been done anyway for the extension, so?
Well, the town didn't spend any money.
You know what I mean?
Would it have been done? Well, yeah, absolutely, because it was an efficiency to the project.
What was your question, sir?
I said the town didn't spend any money.
It hasn't.
So Shane said the town spent a lot of money on everything up to date. This doesn't cost us anything.
Well, I think we spent a lot of money here tonight with our time, so there's probably some of that in the past. Yeah.
Wait till they get the bill.
Wait a minute, we don't get paid, that's right. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, everyone. Hold on, I did have, where are you here? I just want to mention one more time, John Madigan, Rebecca Carmichael, Larry Coop, Guy Rule, Shane McDougal, and Josh Dickinson. By the way, Josh is not only with Lifelight, you should be noted that he's a blueberry farmer, I found out, and a beekeeper. He's definitely going to be a good guy if he's keeping bees. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shane.
Where's the farm?
Yeah, I do that with sparks and questions here about the farming. By the way, I got quite an education on blueberry farming, so we don't see too much of it around
If you
here.
have trouble sleeping at night, just call me, I'll tell you.
Okay. Department head updates. We have anything over there on your end, Tracy? Department head? Do you want to talk about anything that's going on, Keith, regarding tarring? And you got quite a list in here.
I think just to hopefully button up projects here in the community. Obviously, Ball Mountain Road was fine, started to be, or was fine graded this morning or today, in hopes. I didn't get a definitive date on paving, obviously with Pike being busy with the state, it kind of alters our schedule based to mixes, you know, surface mix versus base mix. I don't want to push both at the same time. I'm hopeful that base pavement gets done relatively soon, based on weather and the condition of the road. Quibby Pond Road has been buttoned up. That was paved yesterday. Correct, yesterday. And I'm still waiting the state to finish Pleasant Street.
Did they have a problem with Pleasant Street? Because it was supposed to be like Sunday at night. They were gonna.
So a lot of it's really weather dependent. They have to start, the temperature threshold is be at 55, can't drop below 45 for surface, and then there's obviously a moisture problem too. So that's been the biggest holdup.
Okay.
Well, they better get kicking into gear, because this could change any day.
Correct. And then the park, finish up the paving would be the boat landing, parking, and that's, I believe, is in line for base pavement tomorrow.
Are they on schedule for Mingaloo, the bridge?
Actually, yes, so John and I went down today, observed that, they are on schedule, they probably have another week. But they have a presence that they can keep that there until the 30th of this month. They're allowed, but they should be buttoned up by next week. And it looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I've been down there, it's like, whoa.
Okay, anything else, Keith? You all set? All right, let's see. Anything else regarding these here, Tracy, we need to go over? And there's, the planning department CEO gave us a lot of indication of what he's been doing. Things are slowing down. Economic Development Coordinator, Daryl Sterling, gave us meetings covering, et cetera, et cetera. You're all welcome to see this. I'll request copies of the town office, police department, 225 calls. I did notice one in there. I'm sorry?
Forget me. Nothing. I'm sorry.
Well, no, we might
I
like to
had a
know what you,
question. No.
no? What's it called for fingerprints? I mean, I know what fingerprints are, but I mean, what? Come up to my house and fingerprint me? Or-
Teacher, maybe?
A teacher, yeah, if you're
Is it?
working at the
Teachers
school,
have to
you've
be-
got
Oh, I
to
see.
go through a
Okay.
background check.
Yeah, all right. Charlie was supposed to be here tonight, not coming?
Charlie. Oh, no,
Woodward?
That's
Wanted
just,
to
that,
come
that's
the
just an
5th,
update for
I thought.
information that.
Well, John told me he was coming tonight.
Oh,
He's gonna have a presentation for us on November 5th, but that's the information regarding, and there was a lot of information there, so I
Okay.
thought I would just stick it in there so you won't familiarize yourself with it.
Let's go to, where are we here? Rangeley Fire Rescue one here. Go ahead, chief. Want to talk about this at all, or you
No,
want to?
just been busy, nothing spectacular to point out.
You must have been, you just got it in there today. You got a lot on your plate, don't you?
Well, we had a busy couple of weeks, but that won't happen again.
Yeah.
My packet was late.
It's okay, I'm just picking on you. I do have here, I'm sad to report that Dale Quimby is resigning from the Airport Commission. Says, I, Dale Quimby, am officially resigning my seat in the Airport Commission effective 8/21/18. Due to not being able to commit 100% to the commission, I want to thank the airport for the opportunity, the community, to work on this commission. Sincerely, Dale Quimby. It's my understanding that you had a meeting today and have replaced Dale with, could you just fill us in, please?
One of the two alternates was at the meeting, and we appointed Michael, I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong.
Llewellyn.
Michael Llewellyn, he was at the meeting and accepted the alternate upgrade.
Okay, thank you. Thank Mike for us. Any comments on that? Questions?
Now, that's up to you folks to approve that.
Yeah. I need that.
Yeah, that was next.
I guess to do the application.
Yeah.
I think we just use his other application
Well, he's already on as an
as an
alternate.
alternate.
Yeah, just
Just-
pull his name
that's
up.
just for- I thought that was just for a vote. I thought in the bylaws, didn't it say in the bylaws?
Yeah, the
that-
bylaws it states, but the board still needs to approve it.
We
So
need to
you-
ratify.
When somebody stops in the middle of the year, the airport commission votes to move an alternate into that position, which ends June 30th, 2021. And then it goes to the board for final approval.
Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Michael Llewellyn to the Airport Commission.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
I'll also move on accepting Dale's resignation.
I didn't.
A motion. Did you motion?
I made the second.
No, a motion to accept.
Motion
Oh,
to accept Dale's resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept Dale Quimby's resignation from the Airport Commission effective
8/21.
8/21/18. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? No.
So what is the term going to be for Michael?
He's gonna fill out his term, if that's correct.
I thought you just said June 30th, but I don't know what his term was. Was it
30th, 2020.
You
There you go.
the term and then reapply?
You're supposed to know this stuff, Larry, you're the airport commissioner. Throw it in my lap
I
here.
have to look at the town report for that.
I have one here, if you want to look her up. Calendar, November 5th, presentation for Greater Franklin County Development. That's what I was mentioning before about Charlie Woodward. It was my understanding he would be here tonight, but in our packet it does, yeah, all right. Any questions on that? We'll be looking forward to the presentation. Here's a fun topic for you all to get your arms around. Under other business, state valuation comparison. Do we have is there copies available of this up front? Can we make them up front? This is from Pamela Prodan she's a Franklin County treasurer. I'm sorry?
Our county treasurer.
I didn't get that up quick enough, did
I
I?
didn't know you didn't.
I didn't get that. Depending on when your fiscal year ends, you may be asked or have already been asked by your town's auditor or accountant for the amount of overlapping debt for which the town was liable for as of June 30th of this year. This refers to the town's percentage of obligation to Franklin County Communications, Communication Center, and General Obligation Bond. The Communication Center was formerly known as Dispatch Center. You can find the amounts of debt obligation for your town of this year, June 30th of this year, on the enclosed chart. That chart includes a total debt obligation. Please keep the information with the town's financial records so the town will have. So let me give you a couple of thoughts. Anybody know where we are in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the county?
2.
We're number 3. Number 1.
Who's above? Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 1
That's
is
Jay.
Jay at $690,950,000. Number 2 is Carabasset Valley, $600,500,000, and Rangeley squeaks in at $529,550,000. Then you can get this information at the front desk if you so choose. Any questions on this from the board? Comments? It's amazing to me that we're where we are in terms of Franklin County. When you look at Wilton and Farmington, and we are,
Kingfield.
it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
So that's because the properties are valued at more.
All based on evaluation.
That's
Right,
all it
right.
is, the value of the property.
Okay, Select Board Communications, anything from the board?
Wait, sorry, I'm picking it up. There is an Office of Tourism Strategic Planning meeting, and that was sent out by Charlie. And the one in Farmington is on October 19th. Hang on one second, I can't. It's a 5-year strategic plan for Maine and the economy. And he's asking for, but I don't see a time. Email, let me see a time. I'll call Charlie and ask him what time it is.
Thank you. Anything else? Cindy and I were requested to meet with a citizen, which we have done. I think this is something that I personally hope that they will take Cindy's lead on this, and if anybody has issues and need time with the Board of Selectmen privately, that we make ourselves available to do just that. And then it is my job, and I will continue to do this, to make you as fully aware as I can. There are things that obviously I can't talk about and we can't talk about as a board, but suffice it to say that we did meet with these 2 individuals. They do have some issues that we've agreed we're going to look into. We have agreed that we're going to enlighten the Board of Selectmen regarding these issues, but I'm being vague because I have to be, but the thing I want you to know is that if you bring something to this board, and any Board of Selectmen, and you're not happy, you should come to us. And it's my hope that we'll all gather together and try to get some resolution to any of these particular issues. Can we fix them all? No, but we will try. And you want to comment on that at all, or you all set?
No.
Okay, the executive session is next. I need to get into executive session. I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we move into executive session pursuant to MSRA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Subsection 405, labor negotiations with HR consultant, Subsection 405-6D.
Second.
I need a second. Oh, Cindy seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, people.